Hey guys, welcome to another episode of True Crimes and Weird Times. I'm Kim.
I'm Ashley.
And today I'm going to be telling you about a Black Widow killer named Barbara Steger. She was married twice and both husbands died from gunshot wounds that Barbara claims were accidentally self-inflicted. Barbara Terry was born October 30th, 1948 in Durham, North Carolina to Marva and James Terry. She was the oldest of three kids. She was the only girl, and her parents were hardworking. They were pretty religious, being in the Bible Belt and in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And her mother put a lot of pressure on Barbara to be like this perfect little lady. She was kind of controlling.
40s and 50s.
Yep. Barbara was a good student. She wore thick glasses. She was kind of quiet and shy. And in high school, she was a member of the National Honor Society. She played the clarinet in the marching band.
So you already kind of get an idea of who she was in high school. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
The nerdy girl.
Yeah. She was me.
I was going to say, I'm not judging because,
She was also a member of Future Teachers of America because her goal was to become an elementary school teacher.
Oh my God, it is me.
Overall, Barbara was just a really well-behaved child. Her parents never had any problems out of her. She didn't even, drink or cuss or any of those things like that. She was just like straight-laced, good kid. Then after high school, she was accepted into North Carolina State, which was actually her first choice in schools, but she decided to go with Appalachian State Teachers College in Boone, North Carolina, because they offered her a scholarship.
Oh, okay.
And as we all know, scholarships are how you go to college.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, at the same time that she was attending Appalachian, there was also a man attending Appalachian named Larry Ford. And the two met during Barbara's freshman year and Larry's sophomore year. He was the oldest of 5 kids. He was just an all-around good guy. He was a Boy Scout. He was active in his church youth group. He was president of the school beta club. He was voted most dependable in class.
Wow.
You get the idea.
Yeah.
He was also planning to be a teacher, and he had made really good grades his freshman year of college, so things were really looking good for him.
Yeah.
By the end of the first semester, the two of them were already, quote, going steady, as they used to say.
She's got a beau.
She's got a beau. And by May of 1968, Barbara was 2 months pregnant with her first child.
Wow.
So wanting to do the right thing, the couple went ahead and got married on May 21st, 1968.
Oh.
And they did it in secret. It's
the time.
It was shameful, I guess, unwed mothers.
Yeah.
And so only a small group of their friends went to the ceremony, and they didn't even tell their own families until after they were married.
Ooh.
Big secrets there.
Yeah. What are they going to do? Tell them to divorce?
Yeah. What are they going to do? Might as well ask for forgiveness. So the couple would go on to have 2 boys. They had Brian and Jason. And Barbara dropped out of school, and she went to work at a bank. And Larry did continue going to school himself. But it wasn't really the happy marriage they thought it would be.
Well,
it was rumored that Barbara was having affairs with multiple bank customers.
Wow.
She also started spending more and more money. And soon the family couldn't even afford to pay their bills.
Ooh.
So Barbara then was like, I'll do something to help out. I know I'm spending all the money. So she went and got her real estate license so she could help bring in some extra income.
Yeah.
Except she never sold a single house.
What?
So instead of extra income, all they got was more debt from her getting her real estate license.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, but like, I wonder if that was a cover-up. Oh, I gotta go sell a house.
Oh, it very well could be, as you will see the more we get into Barbara's life.
Oh, good.
On March 22nd, 1978, after 9 years of marriage, Larry Ford was found in the master bedroom of the family's home with a gunshot wound to his chest. He was found laying on his back in the bed, in his pajamas, covers pulled up to his chest.
Huh.
And the sheets in his pajamas were just soaked in blood. And he actually was pronounced dead at the scene.
Yeah, I would assume so.
A loaded clip for a semi-automatic pistol was found resting next to his left hip. And the pistol itself was found on the floor by the bed, as if he dropped it out of his hand.
Okay.
Now, Barbara's story was that the two had gone to bed, but Larry was tossing and turning because he had a groin injury from Taekwondo class the day before.
Huh. Okay.
You know, kicking and stuff. Probably,
Yeah.
probably pulled a muscle. So Barbara went downstairs to sleep on the couch because she couldn't sleep. He was tossing and turning.
Yeah.
She lay down on the couch, turned on the TV, and she fell asleep, only to be later woken up by a really loud noise. She thought, well, okay, maybe Larry knocked a lamp off the nightstand or, something like that. So she got up to go check on him. But when she got upstairs, she found Larry in the bed, gasping for air, with blood all over his chest. Now, what she did next was not call 911.
Huh.
She called her mother instead. And then she called an ambulance. Which she, of course, neglected to tell the police that she called her mother first.
Sounds like a pretty big detail to leave out.
It does. Why would you not tell anyone about that?
Yep.
She did, however, tell the police that they had just purchased that gun the day before, which is how the police came up with their theory on what actually happened. They believed that since Larry couldn't sleep, he probably got up to go look at the gun, inspect it, take it apart, maybe clean it. It's new. It's like a new toy. You want to play with it. Don't play with guns, though, guys.
Don't do that.
And he most likely thought that it wouldn't fire if it didn't have the clip in it. But there was a round in the chamber, so when he pulled the trigger, it shot him, accidentally killing himself. The death was ruled accidental the same day, even. Just immediately.
Wow. So they already had their ideas.
Yeah, they were just, it was an accident. Okay. Although Larry's family actually encouraged authorities to dig a little further because they had grown increasingly suspicious of Barbara.
Yeah. If they knew about everything that was going on.
They may have.
Yeah.
I didn't actually find out if his family knew about all the debt and stuff. At least at this point, they didn't. But there were some other things they did notice.
Okay.
First, there was the fact that after her husband had just accidentally been killed, she showed very, very little emotion. Not much at all. And then 4 days later, at the funeral, Larry's mother actually overheard Barbara standing by the casket, crying and saying, "What have I done? What have I done?"
Oh. Okay.
And then Barbara's mother came over and kind of quieted her down. And remember, she called her mother first.
The gears are working.
But frustratingly, police didn't really seem to care what they had to say.
That's weird.
Yeah, they were just like, nah, this was an accident. Just get out of here.
Well, if they're trying to close it.
Yeah, they just don't want to deal with it. Actually, speaking of the sketchy police work, let's talk a little more about that.
Oh, good.
So one of the detectives on the scene actually swabbed Larry's hands for gunpowder residue. But the swabs weren't sent to the crime lab for 19 days.
What?
After they took them.
Not
really sure why. No one seems to know why. They were just forgotten. No one cared that much. I don't know.
Maybe a little both.
But when they were finally sent into the crime lab, the test came back negative.
Really?
And it was noted in his case file that he could not have fired that gun.
Really?
And so the following month, a judge went ahead and issued an order to have Larry's body exhumed and autopsied because they didn't do one before.
Wow.
No one autopsied him. They just embalmed him and buried him.
Yeah, that is some shoddy police work. You're correct.
Yep. And once they, dug him up and they did the autopsy, they did change the cause of death to homicide. But because of the embalming, they couldn't prove anything.
Yeah.
All of that evidence was crap.
Because somebody didn't send off the evidence.
Because nobody sent off the swabs. They couldn't re-swab his hands to double check.
Yeah. They've already cleaned him up.
Yeah. They couldn't do anything. And although the case was reopened and Barbara was their prime suspect, they couldn't get anything because of the embalming.
Yeah. Oh, that's frustrating.
So it went nowhere. And there was some political things happening in the police force. I think they got a new police chief.
Yeah.
Or a new sheriff, whoever was handling it. They got a new head of the office. And once he took his position, they reclassified the case back to accidental death.
Oh my gosh.
And went ahead and closed it. Oh, and Barbara got over $100,000 from his life insurance policy.
This isn't suspicious at all.
No. Why would anyone think it was her?
I already don't like Barbara.
So after Larry's death, Barbara moved back in with her parents in Durham, and she soon started dating Durham High School coach Russ for short, Steger, who was actually getting out of a marriage himself. He was going through the end stages of a divorce.
Oh, okay.
And a mere 2 months later, after they started dating, they were engaged.
No way.
They were married on March 17th, 1979, which was just 5 days short of the 1-year anniversary of her first husband's death.
What?
I cannot imagine. Can you imagine being like, yeah, let's get married right before my husband's death anniversary?
Yeesh.
Like, no, I don't want those two things any kind of associated.
Yeah. Oh.
But Russ actually went on to adopt both of Barbara's boys, like legally adopt them.
Oh, wow.
And he, by all accounts, was just a great dad to those kids. And he loved them like they were his own. No qualms whatsoever about them not biologically being his.
Wow.
And everybody from the outside kind of thought they were the perfect little family.
Well, that's starting to sound a little familiar.
Now, much like Larry Ford, her first husband, Russ was a good student. He had been a hard worker, had lots of friends. He would do things. He was such a good teacher, such a good coach. He would do things at his job like he would buy sports equipment for the kids that couldn't afford it.
Aww.
He would take their uniforms home to wash for them. He would organize fundraisers like bake sales and stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
He was just a really good guy.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of friends. He made friends very easily. But he had a few friends that didn't really seem to care for Barbara. According to an episode of American Justice that I was watching on the story, the friends did an interview and they said that she seemed like she often kind of put up a front about who she really was. Like she was faking a lot.
Yeah.
They also attested to her massive amounts of spending, like just buying things constantly.
So that didn't stop.
To counteract the debt, Barbara concocts this grand story about how she had written a book and she had written it right after her husband had died and it was going to be published soon. It was about a man who had accidentally shot himself.
What?
She even had a letter to show that the book had been purchased by, I guess, a publisher for $100,000. They had promised her $100,000 for this book. And she took this letter to the bank and used the letter as collateral to take out another loan.
What?
Yeah, and the bank just took it for some reason.
Boy, we missed out on a lot of stuff in the 70s.
I know. It was much easier to commit fraud back then.
Says the true crime podcasters.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same friends that didn't really like her also didn't really believe her story about this book being published.
No.
So what they did is they had looked at the letter. They called the publishing company to confirm that they had sent her this letter. And of course they were like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. So they then told Russ what they had found.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of when Russ is finding out, okay, our financial situation is not good. Mm-hmm. And they even sold their home to buy a less expensive one because they could no longer afford their house. And then after they, moved houses to get a smaller one, Russ also joined the National Guard just to make extra money.
Oh, wow.
On the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah. But despite all this, after they moved houses, it seemed like their marriage was going better. And it seemed like they were just this happy couple for the next 9 years.
Yeesh. 9 years.
9 years
Hold
they
up.
were together. Oh, right. Yeah, you're catching on.
Uh-huh.
Funny coincidence there. They seemed perfectly happy, that is, until February 1st, 1988. Just after 6 a.m. that morning, a call came in to 911. It was 13-year-old Jason Steger.
Oh.
He requested emergency services for his father who had been shot. When the paramedics arrived, they sent out, police, they sent fire trucks, they sent the ambulance. And they found Russ Steger shot in the head and in critical condition.
Oh, wow.
Like Larry, he was also found in the bed, under the covers.
Uh-huh.
And as they worked on Russ, they spotted a small .25 caliber semi-automatic Beretta, still cocked, lying between the pillows with a barrel pointed towards Russ's head. Now, this whole time, Barbara isn't saying anything. She's not crying. She's not upset. She's just standing around in silence.
Well, okay.
And a sheriff's deputy took Barbara downstairs while they're working on Russ to talk to her a little. And she told him that Russ had recently began sleeping with a loaded gun under his pillow as protection from robbers.
Well, that doesn't seem safe.
Nope. But we're going to talk about that in a minute, too.
I bet we are.
Yeah, we are. Apparently, there had been some burglaries in the neighborhood recently.
Oh, okay.
And so he was worried about an intruder, but...
Yeah.
Early that morning, she claimed she had heard her son Jason going to the bathroom, and she was afraid that Russ would mistake Jason for an intruder. So she reached over to wake him up, but accidentally hit the gun with her hand, and it went off, shooting him.
So he was asleep.
Yep.
And she thought he would think he's an intruder.
Mm-hmm.
So she woke him up to tell him
it's not an intruder.
it's not an intruder. You were sleeping. You wouldn't have even known about it.
Uh-huh. Not only that, how do you try to wake someone up and you accidentally get your hand under their pillow?
Yeah, that was my next question, because that's not how I wake up my husband.
Yeah, I don't reach over to wake someone up and just slide my hand under the pillow.
Yeah.
What is that going to do?
Apparently shoot someone in the head.
Don't worry, she fixes her story later. Let's get to that.
Okay.
So Russ was rushed to the hospital, but the bullet had already rendered him brain dead. So the family had a very difficult decision to make. Mm-hmm. And 6 hours later, Russ Steger was taken off of life support and he died from his injury. Oh. Initially, the police believed her story, and the death was ruled accidental.
What?
Again.
These aren't the same place, right? Like, this is a different place.
It's a different town in the same state.
What? Okay.
So let's talk about the investigation.
Please do this, because I need to know.
Immediately, people began noticing that, again, Barbara was just completely emotionless after the death of her second husband. In fact, she was emotionless at the hospital while they were waiting to see if he was going to live or not.
Wow.
And like we've said before,
Right.
grieving in different ways.
But
So-
if this was her fault, like if she's literally admitting to it, but it was accidental.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wouldn't you say something? I would be tore up about it. I would be like, oh my God, I'm sorry, you know.
But she could have been in shock, I guess.
I guess.
Speaking of I'm sorry, she also reportedly never showed any remorse and never even apologized to Russ's parents. That would be the first thing I did was,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Try to over-explain myself. Probably just
yeah.
be crying.
Well, to the point that I'd probably look guilty anyway, but yeah. Wow.
Now, later that same afternoon, Detective Rick Buchanan drove over to Barbara's parents' house where she was staying. It was nearby.
Oh, okay.
And he asked Barbara if she would go back to her house with him so that he could kind of get an idea of what happened. She could walk him through the events of that night. And she was like, sure, yeah, I'll go. Just no problem. I will go back to the house where my husband just died 6 hours ago. But she went back to the house. She answered all of his questions, again, showing little to no remorse or emotions. And she also, this is when she changes her story to where she no longer was trying to wake her husband up. She was actually trying to get the gun out from under the pillow so he couldn't use it.
Okay, sure.
But despite this obvious story discrepancy that no one questions,
Yeah.
the detective also decides the death was accidental and no further investigation was necessary.
This is insane. Surely she pulled some kind of like Chicago, just little old me, you think I would do that?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Remember, she was like this quiet girl. She was a good-looking woman. She was very small and petite, and she was shy and pretty, and
She's probably soft-spoken.
seemed innocent.
Wow.
But then something happened that gave Detective Buchanan the push that he needed. The very next day, Russ's ex-wife, Jolynn Snow, called him and was like, I need to come in and talk to you.
Ooh.
So he's like, okay, well, you can come in, I guess. So she goes into his office and she starts to talk to him. Now, Jolynn, the two had gotten married in 1974 after dating for about 6 years.
Okay.
After they got married, though, they kind of drifted apart. And 3 years after they got married, they were separated and they eventually divorced. That was the divorce he was going through. But it wasn't a nasty divorce. It was very amicable. They stayed very close friends all the way up until his death.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because they were close friends,
She knew some dirt.
she tells Detective Buchanan that in all the time she had known Russ, he had never been someone who would sleep with a gun under his pillow, especially a loaded gun. In fact, because he had a military background, he was very responsible with guns and understood all the dangers of accidental shootings.
Yeah.
He knew how to check for one in the chamber. He knew how to make sure it wasn't loaded.
Oh, good girl.
She also told the detective that there is no way Barbara would have been worried about him hearing their son go to the bathroom while he was asleep because he was a notoriously heavy sleeper. And several of their friends and family could attest to that.
Oh, wow.
In fact, in the past, he had slept not only through a dogfight, but also through a screeching smoke alarm and the house fire that set it off.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So she's worried about him waking up when her son was using the bathroom and shooting him.
Right. Ugh. Barbara.
Right. However, Detective Buchanan basically said, like, so what? I've already ruled it accidental. But then Jolynn told him something that made him, like, sit up and give her all of his attention.
Uh-huh.
She asked if he was aware that Barbara's first husband was also killed in an accidental shooting.
Ooh, how did she know? I guess from talking to Russ.
Russ had known.
Ooh.
I'm about to tell you how she knew. See, Detective Buchanan didn't know Barbara even had a first husband.
Oh.
So this really made him pay attention to her.
Mm-hmm.
Jolynn tells the detective that a few years prior in 1983, Russ had told her that Barbara had put them in, a really bad financial situation, like we talked about. She was lying about money. She was hiding bills from him. She was, making up fake publishing gigs. He had also caught Barbara cheating on him.
Uh-oh.
Yep, again, more cheating.
Yeah.
Now, he considered leaving her at this point. In fact, Jolynn encouraged him to leave her at this point.
Well, yeah.
But he had already adopted the 2 boys.
Yeah.
And he already loved them like his own. And he basically was just like, look, I made this commitment to these kids and I can't leave them now.
Oh,
So he decided to stay for the boys.
that's sweet.
He also mentioned to her that, he couldn't even believe people like Barbara exist.
Yeah, me either.
That's how awful she was. Then again in 1987, he confided in Jolynn again. Now, this was just a few months before he was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to visit Jolynn, and he was, bragging about the boys, how well they're doing and stuff. But before he left, he made it a point to tell her that if anything ever happened to him, to promise that she would look into it.
Wow. So he already had his own
A
worries.
few years before, he had told Jolynn about Larry.
Mm-hmm.
And he also mentioned to her that he wondered if the same thing would happen to him.
Oh.
He
Spooky.
knew very well what
Yeah.
happened to Larry. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. But, I don't know. That'd be a good reason to leave. I understand.
Like,
The
leave,
boys,
leave
but,
and
like-
take the kids with you.
Yeah.
Which is less feasible, I guess, in the 80s. But,
Especially them not being his biological children.
well, they were adopted, so might as well have been.
Yeah,
at
I
this
know.
point.
I understand, but I don't
Yeah,
think that's
judge.
how they... Yeah, well. But...
Depends on the judge's point of view, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, Detective Buchanan was shocked. Like I said, he had no idea she was even married before, let alone that her first husband had died basically exactly the
Yeah.
same way. Which, come on, Barbara.
I know. She didn't learn the first time, did she?
Well, apparently it worked the first time. Might as well try it again.
Well, she did learn a little something because she said she accidentally shot him. So the residue's on her hands.
Oh, yep, that's true.
Gotta think.
So because of what Jolynn said to Detective Buchanan, he was now determined to get to the bottom of this case.
Yeah.
Like, he dug into it. He seemed to be like the only detective at the station who wanted to dig into it more, but he just did it himself.
I'm surprised it took him this long to jump into this. This should have been suspicious to begin with.
You would think so, especially with her story changing.
Yeah.
One of the things he learns as he's digging into her past about Larry's death was that it wasn't Larry who bought the gun the day before.
Oh, really?
It was Barbara. Mm-hmm. And on her permit, she had put that it was for protection against a stalker. A coworker at the time, remember this is a first marriage, a coworker at the time had taken her to buy it and even showed her how to shoot it and taught her about gun safety.
Ooh.
Showed her how to check for a round in the chamber. Showed her
Yeah.
that it would still fire without the clip in it. And, you know,
Wow.
showed her how to use it.
Yeah.
Now, 4 days after Russ's death,
Oh, good. At least it didn't take 19 days this time.
right, Detective Buchanan showed up unannounced at Barbara's house with a video crew.
Oh.
He wanted to film her reenacting the events from the night her husband was killed.
Oh. Mwah.
I know, it's
Beautiful.
beautiful. I love Detective Buchanan.
Yeah.
He started off a little slow, but he's getting there.
Just took a little bit longer. It's all right.
Now, she had no idea she was even a suspect. So
Yeah.
she wasn't worried at all. So she's just like, sure, yeah, I'll do it.
Idiot.
And just, gets on the bed, starts doing the reenactment. You can actually watch part of it on the show American Justice, her episode
Ooh.
that was called Till Death Do Us Part.
Okay.
And you can see part of her reenactment on there.
Jeez.
And a few minutes into this reenactment, Barbara stops and she starts repositioning things to fit her narrative a little better.
Of course she does.
So she starts moving the guy who's pretending to be Russ. She starts moving the pillows.
Uh-huh.
And then she uses her hand. You know, she kind of makes the gun symbol.
Yeah.
She uses her hand to show where the gun was and how it was angled as she was pulling it out from under the pillow.
Uh-huh.
Now, the problem was, in the video, you can clearly see it's pointed at an upward angle.
Uh-huh.
Like it would be if you pulled it out from under a pillow.
Right.
Except the autopsy report, because they did one this time,
Yeah.
showed that Russ was shot at a downward angle
Of course.
and physically could not have been shot from underneath the pillow. And the fact that she just showed them all these things casually with no emotion whatsoever
Yep.
really just kind of sealed it in for the detectives there. Like they were just like, wow, okay, yep.
I feel like, yeah, if you were asked to reenact the way you killed someone, there would be some kind of trigger or PTSD or something.
Right? If if this was my second husband who had just died and I'm the one who shot him this time,
Yeah.
I would need to probably be hospitalized.
Yeah.
Like I would not be able to just casually show them what happened.
Sure, hop up on the bed. I'll show you.
Yeah, you lay over there. I'll lay right here, right where I was when I
Right.
actually shot. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't. Ugh.
The gall.
I know. On April 18th, 1988, less than a month after Russ was shot, Barbara Steger was arrested for murder.
Good.
However, prosecutors really needed to make sure they had a solid motive for this murder
Okay.
because so far there wasn't a lot of one.
Yeah.
So Jolynn and Russ's mother get together and they start sorting through Russ's things to help find something. They're like, maybe there's something in here that can help the police with the case. And it actually doesn't take them very long to come across a check made out to Barbara from Russ
Uh-huh.
for $500. And the more they look at it, they're like, I don't think that's Russ's signature.
Yeah.
And it definitely was not.
Shocker.
Barbara had forged his signature on the check. And so what happened was she had 3 different loans out in secret,
What?
at least one of which she had forged Russ's name on. So now when she first took out these loans, she was able to keep up with the payments on them.
Yeah.
She no longer could keep up with the payments
Well,
on them.
yeah.
So she had fallen behind and the bank was threatening to call Russ.
Oh.
So she stole the $500 to cover up with the bank.
Yeah.
She was like, if I'll make this payment, I'll pay off these few loans, or not pay them off, but
Well,
I'll pay them up a little
Stop
so
them a little bit.
so they won't call him. Except then what was she going to do when this bank statement came and he saw there was $500 missing? Well, the answer seems pretty obvious when you find out that the bank statement was due to arrive at the house the day she shot and killed
What?
Russ.
Of course it was. Really? Over that, though? Okay.
The day after the murder, Barbara had even written herself 2 more checks from Russ's bank account in an attempt to clean it out before it was frozen.
Wow.
Yeah.
I-
So
Speechless.
she was so far in debt. She had all these loans. She'd been forging his signature on them.
Yeah.
And now she'd stolen money from him. And she was probably just afraid her whole life was about to fall apart.
She got messy.
So she stole the money, figured she'd gotten away with it before. She
Yep.
could just get rid of him before the bank statement comes. Problem solved.
Yep.
Barbara is released on a $250,000 bail, and she goes home to wait for trial. Then just 12 days before the trial was supposed to begin, a student of Russ's turned in a cassette tape that he discovered near Russ's old high school office. Now, he had found it months before, but he took it home to listen to, see what was on it, and forgot about it. So months later, he decided to listen to it, and he immediately recognized his coach's voice.
Oh, wow.
On the tape is just over 9 minutes of Russ explaining how for the final few days of his life, Barbara had been giving him pills at nighttime.
Huh.
In fact, in one case, she actually woke him up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to make him take this pill.
What?
And she would say, oh, it's aspirin, it's sinus medicine, it's this.
Yeah.
And he's like, but why would she need to wake me up at 3 a.m. for sinus medicine?
Right.
And he goes on to say that he would wake up just feeling awful. So he took the pills to a pharmacist who told him that they were, in fact, sleeping pills.
Oh, my God.
He talks about how he was afraid she was trying to harm him and about one of the affairs he had caught her having a few years ago. And he just spills all this out on this tape. And it's Russ. I mean, it's Russ himself saying
it's him saying it.
Well, Barbara's family and the defense claim that it wasn't Russ's voice on the tape.
Oh, really?
They say that it's just, there's no way, it wasn't him. They've made this up. They're trying to, get her put away. It's somebody who sounds like him. It's not him. But either way, the tape, well, parts of it at least, was still played for the jury at trial.
Oh, nice.
So on May 17th, 1989, after only 44 minutes of deliberation, Barbara Steger was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to the death penalty.
Wow, good.
But later in 1993, after an appeal, because all death sentences automatically get an appeal, the court changed the death penalty to life in prison after her mother and both sons too, testified that the voice on the tape was not Russell Steger's.
What? I mean, it doesn't matter. She's still in prison, but like...
On that same episode that I was talking about before, you can hear part of the tape. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, of course, I never heard him speak in person. I don't know what it sounded like.
Right.
But it sounded genuine to me. It didn't sound like someone reading off a script or making stuff up. It sounded genuine, but that is my amateur analyzation about it. Like, I don't know anything about him besides what I've told you here.
Right.
So I don't know if it was Russell's voice or if it was someone else, but apparently that was enough to reverse her death sentence. Yeah. Since then, every parole date so far has been denied. But in 2017, she was, at least for a little while, allowed to leave prison for up to 6 hours at a time for community leave. It was a thing they were doing.
Okay.
And she was just allowed to go wander around town. And after Jolynn spotted her in a nice sit-down restaurant. Now, granted, like I said, this is in 2017.
Yeah.
And I just keep imagining, like, 30 years after this happened, and you see the person who killed your ex-husband.
I know, in a restaurant.
Who's supposed to be in prison.
Yeah. I'm surprised she didn't do something illegal.
Right. She didn't do anything illegal, but she did start sending letters to the police department and getting other people to send letters opposing this leave that she was allowed. I couldn't find out if it worked. Yeah. If she got denied it or not.
Oh, okay.
But Jolynn seems pretty determined, and I'm going to assume she may have accomplished her mission.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I like Jolynn.
I like Jolynn, too. As of now, Barbara Steger is 73 years old, and she is serving her life sentence at the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women.
Good. You stay there.
Well,
good.
So that's our story. Ashley, got any comments about old Barbara?
I've got plenty, but...
None you can say on air?
Right. I'm bumfuzzled over the police work on this.
Oh, yeah. If it hadn't been for Jolynn convincing Detective Buchanan, she would have gotten away with this and possibly done it a third time.
Because I don't understand. Like, yep, accident, done. Like the first time, okay, I understand. It was still crappy police work.
I mean, she'd never been in trouble. She was a straight-laced mom. Like, it's reasonable for them to assume.
But like the second time.
But what was not reasonable was the fact that it took 19 days to test his hands for gunpowder residue.
Exactly. I don't know. This is a wild story.
It is.
I can't believe she got away with it. Well, almost got away with it twice. But,
Almost. And she never was tried for her first husband's murder.
well, they don't really have anything for it.
Right. I'm telling you guys, I started this story as a little, one of our half episodes. And the more I read on it, the more I was like, I've got to add this too. I've got to add this too. And here we are with a whole story.
Jeez. That was a good one, though. I liked it.
Yep. So that was our first Black Widow story.
Oh, first.
It was.
You heard it here.
Side note, if you guys haven't checked out our Patreon yet, we'd really appreciate it if you guys would go take a look at it, see all the cool stuff you can get.
Extra content.
Bonus content. You can get cool stuff like, previews and extra little mini episodes, even a t-shirt if you want one.
Mm-hmm. So check it out. Thanks for listening.
Like us on Facebook at True Crimes and Weird Times Podcast.
Follow us on Instagram at True Crimes Weird Times.
Email us your stories at truecrimesweirdtimes@gmail.com.
And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review.
Bye.